Hi, I'm going to talk to you about the rise of the amateurs, because being an amateur is a great way to have a positive impact on society. You may not be aware of it yet, but just like me, all of you, you're all amateurs. And at the end of my talk, you will be damn proud of it too. We people are a funny species. We crammed our society with rules and expectations, prescribed paths which we're supposed to walk to go from A to B, while it's obviously in our nature to take shortcuts. And it's actually that eagerness to take shortcuts, to think differently, that's at the origin of a lot of innovation and progress. Let me tell you a story. Some years ago, two brothers ran a bike repair shop. They were both school dropouts, one of them wearing this typical hipster mustache. One day they had this crazy new idea for a startup. What if we built our own airplane? They were convinced that their idea would change the world. They even thought they could sell it to the US Army. They put all their savings into it, because that's what startup people do. They throw all the money at their idea. They even built their own wind tunnel to test the wings, because the mantra for a startup may be fail and fail again. But when you're dreaming about flying, that's not the right idea. At a certain point, they needed a very light engine for their airplane. But apparently, no manufacturer could deliver them one. So they decided to build one themselves in their own bike repair shop with their own hands in just 6 weeks. Somehow that reminds me of the story of Elon Musk. Famous for his electric car Tesla, he also runs a factory, a company called SpaceX. With SpaceX, he's building rockets because he wants to take a backup from humanity to live on Mars. That's the purpose. Now, at a certain point, he needed rockets, engines for his rockets, but apparently nobody could deliver him the right engine. So he decided, he too, to build one himself. Now, the two brothers I'm talking about actually lived a whole century earlier than Elon. And as you might have guessed, I see some heads nodding, indeed, it's Orville and Wilbur Wright. The Wright brothers actually succeeded in taking off and flying in 1903. But it took several years before media worldwide actually believed they did fly. In 1907, the US Army, just having lost about $50,000 on an aviation experiment, was very reluctant to believe the Wright brothers' claim of flying. After all, who would believe two amateurs could succeed where all the experts failed miserably? Now, the Wright brothers indeed were amateurs. They became experts in aviation because of their passion and curiosity. They chose not to follow the prescribed path, but take their own shortcut. In doing so, gave wings to the dream of mankind to land on the moon just 66 years later. First liftoff, landing on the moon just 66 years later. That's an amazing story. Now imagine if the Wright brothers would have had to their disposal the tools we have today. Google for research, instead of doing research in a library. YouTube to record the first launch. Kickstarter and Indiegogo for funding. YouTube and Facebook to find collaboration and support. That would have been a major shortcut to the Wright brothers. And indeed, we are extremely spoiled with the number of tools we have to our disposal. It's actually for the first time ever in human history that we have that many tools to use. Now, what if we use those tools wisely? I think we can do magic. Let me explain. Companies are constructed from 3 building bricks: resources, being machines and material, knowledge, data and processes, and third, skills, talented people. What companies do is they build walls around those building bricks, asking a fee or an entrance from anyone who wants to benefit from them. They force citizens and customers to follow a prescribed path to get what they want. as such, building from the wall building blocks, building a business model. Now, what did technology do with that? Technology made those walls tumble, freeing all the building bricks that were in it and making them available to us consumers and citizens. And as such, you can shortcut those business models. And while doing so, we created what I call the shortcut society. Let me give you an example of this shortcut society. As in many countries in the world, Belgium lags behind in coding classes, computer programming lessons. And compared to, for example, Estonia, that is a mild understatement. I think the visual says enough. Now, at a certain point, there was an interesting news fact. As more and more schools started to offer coding classes as an alternative for Latin, the Belgian Minister of Education said, we need regulation for that to control this newcomer in the students' curriculum. And that gave some interesting coverage. Breaking news, read all about it, language of the future overtaking language of the past. That was the emphasis in the media. The funny insight that the language of the future, coding, was pushing aside the dead language of the past, Latin. That's how media goes, always in for a funny headline. But the valuable news, however, would have been to know how those coding classes got into those school system to start with. Enter the amateurs. Those coding classes were initiated by concerned parents, parents that found it important that digital literacy was taught at school. But it wasn't taught at school, so they took their own initiative. They did so under the flag of Coder Dojo. Coder Dojo, now that was close. Coder Dojo are volunteer-led classes, coding classes for groups of children starting at the age of 7, one Saturday a month. And to illustrate you how big the need was for those coding classes, when we as a local chapter posted our 40 vacant spots, they were booked in less than a minute. And we had a waiting list the next morning of 104 children. There's a market. Now, these are the people coaching, teaching. They're amateurs. They're not professional teachers. They learn the trade on the spot. Thank God for them, the pupils were very eager to learn. They learned that fast that they sort of became teachers themselves within a few weeks. Parents kept organizing Coder Dojo after Coder Dojo, village after village, and at a certain point, a school picked up on a trend. And as it goes with parents, they brag about how good their school is. We have coding classes, hey, you have not. And what the other parents did, said, now we go to our school and we demand coding classes too. And that's what happens. Put some peer pressure on a school directory and bingo, there you go. School after school started organizing coding classes. Apparently enough coding classes to make the Minister of Education say, we need a regulation, because that's what ministers do. So the real story wasn't about the funny joke about language of the future and the dead language of the past. The real story was about parents working under the flag of Coder Dojo, inserting the education system, which apparently was very heavy or very difficult for the education system to deliver itself. Basically, amateurs upgraded the school system. Now, I've taken part in several discussions with education representatives, and it was an issue to fit coding classes into the agenda. Because if you add coding classes, you have to remove some other classes. And that's a dilemma. It's an immense dilemma. But somehow, parents shortcutted that dilemma. They hacked it by focusing on a part of the agenda that apparently, obviously, the school system didn't care about. The weekends. That's a no-brainer. For ages, parents have been forced to take their kids through prescribed paths, through the school system, to get a diploma. Now, thanks to technology, the tools needed were liberated and came to the disposal of the parents, being able to shortcut that system. Those parents did that, but not by attacking the existing school system head-on, but by handing over tools, by creating tools that the school system itself could integrate afterwards. The old promise of the education system of handing out a paper which you can run to a factory or to an office and you can trade it in for a job is slightly under pressure. And that is a mild understatement as well. The return on investment, both in time and money, in the classic school system is very much under pressure. So what if we, as parents, join forces to not only solve the coding issue, but solve any issue we think is going on in education, whatever you can imagine? What if we, the parents, the amateur teachers, brick by brick, upgrade education? That's food for thought. Let me give you another example. Mark Bellings, a geography teacher, second grade, in a village, small village in Belgium. One day, Mark had this interesting question. Why not share the energy my solar panels generate with my neighbor? Wall, solar panel, neighbor, plug, done. After all, it was his house, his energy, his panels, his roof, and sun being beamed upon them in abundance for free. Mark did, we all have ideas from time to time like that, but Mark took him to the next level. Mark did what he tries to teach his kids, his students. He kept asking questions. Why? Why not? What if? And he came up with this interesting idea. What if I not only distribute the surplus of my energy to the neighbor, but maybe the whole street, maybe the whole neighborhood, maybe the whole village? And then Mark started to think exponentially. He thought, what if the whole village could become a power central? We would cut the cost of electricity in the future, and the village would become CO2 neutral as well, CO2 neutral as well. And that's where Mark found his purpose. And with that purpose came fellow dreamers to join him on that quest, me being one of them. Mark is trying to shortcut the energy industry. He took his story to the media. He's working on a program to introduce LED streetlights in the village. He's also working on a program for smart lighting in the village buildings. He's pushing for a community solar park. He's talking to the government, to the Ministry of Energy. And he's also talking to the energy industry. And he's still teaching. Now, Mark's an amateur. He became an expert in energy because of his passion and curiosity. And funny enough, he encountered the same issues like the Wright brothers did. They encountered disbelief. Seriously, Mark? Seriously, guys? Officials found it very hard to believe Mark when he made suggestions for more sustainable energy use in his village, because they said, it's a teacher, it's not an official expert, it's an amateur. Now, what if Mark finds more kindred spirits, more amateurs, to change how we treat energy, to change how we use energy, how we produce energy, and how we distribute energy? That's an interesting thought. I think exponential technology will help doing that. Batteries are getting cheaper. They're here to begin with. They're getting cheaper and better, and solar panels are getting cheaper and better as well. There's a thought. Whether we challenge the school system, like the Kodo Dojo parents did, or challenging the energy industry, like Mark did, what if we challenge whatever there is to be challenged, whatever we think that can be made better in society? We are more powerful than we think. We actually own the building bricks of the future. We live in an era of exponential technology, and that will have a massive impact on society. But I'm convinced that exponential thinking will have an even bigger positive one. And as this famous fellow, Albert Einstein, said, I have no special talents, which makes him an amateur. But I am only passionately curious, and that's what the whole story is about. We are all born curious. And progress comes from the power of being curious. Progress comes from the power of asking questions. And you need amateurs to do that, because an expert won't. An expert knows how crazy it is to challenge the status quo. But an amateur, they don't know. They question. Why? Why not? What if? These are great times to be a passionate amateur. These are great times to turn challenges into opportunities. Now, here's what you have to do. There is a badge attached under your chair. Seriously, there is. I want you to pick that badge. Seriously, there's a badge. There's not a gremlin or whatever, there's a badge. And it looks a bit like this. Obviously smaller, but this is for reading purposes. Now I want you to add your name on top of it, and under your name, your what if, your purpose, that thing you want to fix and make better in society. Not your profession, not your expertise. That what if can be big or small. It doesn't have to be a moonshot. It can be in education, in health, in energy, in food. It can be at your place, and it can be in a foreign country. And during break, I want you to mingle, to meet other amateurs with similar or other purposes. Because you come to a TED Talk for inspiration. You come to a TED Talk to find a purpose. Now you come to a TED Talk and you might find fellow amateurs to fix what you want to fix in the world. If you don't have a what if, I'll be glad to help you out with one. If you have more than one, have a whole bag of extra badges. Now, there's an idea I think worth spreading. No, it's not even an idea worth spreading. It's a belief worth spreading. I believe that we amateurs can all make a difference in what we passionately care about. And if what we passionately care about can really have a broad positive impact on society, we will find the means and the kindred spirits to make it happen. So, fellow amateurs, I want you to rise, pick up that badge, and ask that one important question. What if? Thank you.